Hello, BookTube. Well, as you might have heard from an earlier video, I was in the middle of palavering about one thing or another when all of a sudden the doorbell rang, and that was the mailman, the mail truck driver. My mailman came earlier with a bunch of stuff, but the mail truck driver is new, and he's still working out his route. He just got this route, so he's still working out how he wants to do it, what order he wants to do it in, so I never know during the course of a day when I'm going to see him. And I'm glad that he rang the bell because I want to get to know him. I want to start to talk with him so he doesn't feel... I want to, of course, reward him with money or a bottle of wine or both at Christmas time. I don't want to feel odd. I want him to know me by the time that happens. But he dropped off the day's third mail delivery. I know. The other two I managed on my own without you. That doesn't feel right to me any more than it does to you. But this last one we can do together, and we'll see what's in here. It could be something squeal-worthy. Even so, the first one is very small, so it's probably not going to be squeal-worthy. In fact, it might be a slim volume of poetry. But I have my faithful assistant at hand to help me deal with it. Ooh. We had a wonderful dog walk this afternoon. Just wonderful. Full of dogs. And it's such a strange thing to have a dog who I can walk right up to other dogs. For 16 years, I had two dogs, two sweet old girls, one of whom, my Basset Hound, was happy to meet anybody. Any other dog. She was mortally terrified of children. But she was happy to meet other dogs. But my other dog, a pointer named Malin, hated all other dogs. Hated them. Snarl and bark savagely. And if I made the mistake of letting her get too close, she would actually try to lunge at them. So, yeah, I approach all... When I'm on my own, I approach all dogs right away. Face first. I want smooches from every four-legged creature I encounter. But it still feels new, even after a year. It still feels new to be able to just walk a dog up to someone else's dog. But Frida loves everybody. She wants to meet everybody. So we had a very doggy dog walk. Oh, no. Okay, this is not a slim volume of poetry. This is a slim novel. This is by Yuko Tsushima, translated from the Japanese, I assume, by Geraldine Harcourt. It's I don't know if you can tell in the iffy light here, but that is an American cover design. So I'll hold it up for you just so you can feast your eyes on it. It is blank gray. And it is a simple, remarkable story. Each chapter of the short, forceful novel is 1 month in the life of a woman and her 2-year-old daughter following her separation from her husband. She moves into her apartment on the top of a nondescript building. It is filled with light, the kind of luminous presence that marks the passage of time. Much of the novel is set in the apartment, a circumscribed world that contains an expansive universe of emotions. The external world mostly stays the same, but the narrator's inner world is molten. Over the course of a year, in 12 distilled chapters, her life is convulsively transformed, and you will be transformed too. Okay, and the author was born in Tokyo in 1947. Her prolific literary career began with her first collection of short stories, which she published at the age of 24. And she's won many awards. And this comes out in February. So it's a very, very small novel. Set, apparently, in a very, very small setting. A very circumscribed setting. That's kind of interesting. That usually backfires on authors. We'll see if this writer can handle it. Let's see. So this next one is also extremely thin. Oh. So we might... Okay, this is also a thin novel. This is Tentacle by Rita Indiana, translated from the Spanish by Aki Obejas. And Rita Indiana is a Dominican music composer, producer, and key figure in contemporary Caribbean literature. She's the author of 2 collections of stories and 4 novels, and is a driving force in experimental Dominican popular music, along with her band Rita Indiana y los Misterios. And she's on Twitter. And her translator is a writer, journalist, and professional translator who has done Junot Diaz and Wendy Guerra, among others. Okay, so what is Tentacle? It comes out in January. It's another thin novel I won't be reading this year. Plucked from her life on the streets of post-apocalyptic Santo Domingo, Alcilde Figueroa finds herself at the heart of a Santeria prophecy. Only she can travel back in time and save the ocean and humanity from disaster. Tentacle is an electric novel with a big appetite and brave vision, plunging headfirst into questions of climate, change, and technology. Yoruba ritual, queer politics, poverty, sex, colonialism, and contemporary art. Bursting with punk energy and lyricism, it's a restless, addictive trip. And the tagline that the pub sheet writer here gives it is that it is The Tempest meets the telenovela. Okay, all right. Well, this comes out in mid-January. It sounds, to put it mildly, like I am not cool enough to read this book. And also maybe that the author herself would tell me that to my face if we ever met. So I'll read it anyway. Maybe I'll love it, but not right now. I will get to it in the new year. We'll move on here. This mail haul does end in a box. Not a very big box. There's nothing very big here. What's that, baby? Oh, Frida, stand up. Oh, goodness gracious. Why are you... It was an exhausting walk, but I didn't think she'd be... She's glued to the floor here. All right, well, I'll show her to you separately. Okay, all right, wonderful. This also comes... Oh, no, this comes out in December. This is Ray Connolly, Being John Lennon. A Restless Life. This is a biography of John Lennon. The most intimate yet unsparing biography of one of the greatest and most mythologized musicians of the 20th century. Rock musicians. That's the 20th century, I should say. What was it like to be John Lennon? What was it like to be the cast-off child, the clown at school, and the middle-class suburban boy who pretended to be a working-class hero? How did it feel to have one of the most recognizable singing voices in the world, but to dislike it so much as to always want to disguise it? Being John Lennon is not about the whitewashed Prince of Peace of imagined legend, because that was only a small part of him. The John Lennon depicted in these pages is much more kaleidoscopic figure, sometimes almost a collision of different characters. Okay. So, once again, as I've said on this channel many times, somewhere out there, within the sound of my voice, is someone who could review this book much better than I can. And has 3 months to do it, but that person would have to step forward. I am not a Beatles fan by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that John Lennon is one of the greatest musicians of the 20th century. I don't think he has a distinctive singing voice. I don't buy into his myth any more than this author does, but unlike this author, I suspect, I also don't buy into any alternate myths either. And clearly someone who knows more about this, about the whole world of it, should be writing about this book than me. So if you are that someone, feel free to sing out. Then we've got one of these vacuum pack things. Let's see what this is. What is this? Yeah, jump for it. Oh, what is that? Oh, goodness. Okay. All right. Well, this is a finished copy, so this is probably October. Yeah, this is late October. Did not know anything about this. This is Beirut Rule. The Murder of a CIA Station Chief and Hezbollah's War Against America by Fred Burton and Samuel Katz. Fred Burton is the author of Ghost, Confessions of a Counter-Terrorist Agent, and Samuel Katz is the author of Ghost Warriors, Inside Israel's Undercover War Against Suicide Terrorism. Let's see. After the deadly terrorist bombing of the American embassy in Lebanon in 1983, Only one man inside the CIA possessed the courage and skills to rebuild the networks destroyed in the blast, William Buckley. As the new Beirut station chief, he delved into the city's darkest corners, developing new sources and handling assets. However, he quickly became the target of a young terrorist named Imad Mugheni, who was eventually abducted, tortured, and murdered. In other words, Buckley was eventually abducted, tortured, and murdered. And this is the story of that. Drawing on never-before-seen government documents as well as interviews with Buckley's co-workers, friends, and family, the authors reveal how the relentless search for Buckley in the wake of his kidnapping ignited a war against terror that continues to shape the Middle East today. Wow. Okay. All right. So, the Lebanon bombing I know only from larger histories of the time and the subject. I've never read a book, obviously, on this particular subject. I'd be amazed if there's been any other books. This is going to be tough to read. Really tough to read. But it comes out right away, so it's time to do it. This is going to feature a cast of characters that I know really well. all of the power players in Washington at this time I know really well. I followed them at the time, and I've read about just about everything I get my hands on ever since. So this is kind of in my street, but I don't know. We'll have to see. So that brings us to this last thing. This a box for the little bean. Yes, you can have the paper, but you can have the box. Okay. All right, we have not strayed from Reagan and Bush era America. This is the University of Nebraska Press. This is by David Byrne, and it is Ronald Reagan, an intellectual biography. No snickering in the back aisles. I agree, the word is probably mischosen, but because Ronald Reagan would have been the first person to say he was no intellectual, and that maybe that adjective is the wrong thing. But let's see what the author has to say, or at least the publicist. In this ambitious work, David Byrne analyzes the ideas that transformed Ronald Reagan's political philosophy. Rather than appraising his personal and emotional life, Byrne's intellectual biography goes one step further. It establishes a rationale for the former president's motives, discussing how thinkers such as Plato and Adam Smith influenced him. All right. The author points to three historical forces that shaped Reagan's political philosophy: Christian values, particularly the concept of the universal kingdom of God, America's firm belief in freedom as the greatest political value and its aversion to strong centralized governments, and the appeasement era of World War II, which stimulated Reagan's aggressive and confrontational foreign policy. Byrne's account of the 40th president augments previous work on Reagan with a new model for understanding him. Okay. All right. I'm on board. I'm on board. This is when does this come out? November 1st. Okay, so this is a November book. Good. I have a little time to read it and then maybe reread it. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that Ronald Reagan never read Adam Smith. He learned bullet points. He was happy to talk about Adam Smith with people he knew had read Adam Smith, and I doubt very much that Ronald Reagan read Plato either. Maybe a bit here and there, crammed for college courses or whatnot, but certainly this is going to be it's a thin book, but it's going to be a very interesting balancing act for the author. I can't wait to see how the author does it. There is a book that could be written on, I don't want to say an intellectual biography of Ronald Reagan, but a mental biography, certainly there is, that could be written. Intellectual, I'm worried that the author is going to crawl out on a branch that won't support him. I mean, intellectual biographies usually are hip deep in what the subject has been reading and annotating and maybe writing about. And those are alien concepts when it comes to Ronald Reagan. So this will be fascinating. It doesn't come out quite soon enough for me to jump into it tonight, but I'm intrigued. So we have Ronald Reagan, an intellectual biography. We have Beirut Rules, We have Being John Lennon, a John Lennon biography, and then two very thin novels for 2019. There's Tentacle by Rita Indiana, and both of them in translation, and Territory of Light by Yuko Tsushima. So we have two very thin novels from next year. No idea yet. We're still too far out for me to get even a sense of what 2019 might be like in terms of books. The one little quiver of my spidey sense for 2019 deals with historical fiction. I don't know. It's way too early, so it could be completely wrong. But I have a kind of very faint premonition that 2019 might be a rip-roaring year for historical fiction. And if that spidey sense turns out to be true, then it could be that 2019, in order to fulfill that prophecy, it could be that 2019 is when we see, for instance, the new Hilary Mantel, and maybe a bunch of other stuff that's been long promised. We shall see. I could be wrong about that completely. But in terms of the non-historical fiction, the stuff that these little novels are from, I don't know what to expect. These will be among the first that I will read in the new year. I will go through that journey together. In the meantime, we're done with books. That was not only the only mail haul that I put on camera today, but also the last mail haul of the week. And I admit, nothing really leaped out. You'd think that things would. The Beirut Rules you'd think would be a Steve base hit at least, and that a book on Ronald Reagan would be a home run. But something about the author's approach to that book, it could end up massively disappointing me. We shall see. I will report back. But in one way or another, I'm gonna clean up. Oh well, wait, no, you need your glimpse of Frida, don't you? Who's that, baby? Ooh. Oh, you're a good girl. She is tired. Aren't you? Oh. She is tired. It wasn't until I actually held her that I realized that. She's much more tired than I thought she is. She'll probably sleep really soundly for a few hours. But in the meantime, I'm going to go clean up the mess that she's made. Tired or no, she can still make a mess. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.